Thank you all for being here. This is incredible to see. There's standing room and then there's standing room. It's amazing to see this energy. We're getting started right now. I'm Hiten Samtani, the Real Deal's Associate Publisher, and it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists for the South Florida Condo Developer Panel. So guys, please make your way in. We've got Gil Dezer, we've got Jon Paul Perez, Keith Menin, and Todd Michael Glaser.
Inside my bones, it goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it.
I don't know if they're here to see you guys or they're just lonely, but this is unbelievable energy. Thank you so much for being with The Real Deal. Thank you so much for joining our panelists to share their thoughts on what is the most extraordinary market in at least a decade, maybe even more. Let me just get a quick show of hands. Does anyone not know who these people are? Because I don't want to spend too much time on introductions. If there's anyone, I will do the introductions for you. Otherwise, we've got Gil Dezer. He's the president of Dezer Development.
Thank you.
Keith Menin, he is a principal at Menin Hospitality, Menin Homes, and also a tech investor at night sometimes. We've got Jon Paul Perez, he is the president of Related Group, one of the premier condo developers in the country. They've done tens of thousands of units, really sort of defined the condo market in South Florida. And we've got Todd Michael Glaser. Todd is kind of hard to define, Todd. I would say pioneering spec home developer, pushing the envelope, making Palm Beach the New Hamptons probably of the world is a good way to go. Right? And I'm Hiten Samtani, your moderator. Our hashtag is TRD Forum. I want to thank our sponsor, Burden LLP, for generously supporting this panel. And let's get started with politics. We had a panel in the morning, and we had some of the mayors, all the mayors actually of this region come here. I wanted to get your take. We come from, a lot of us come from New York, and the business environment is sort of, it can be, not necessarily pro-business all the time. I wanted to get your take as developers, as sort of investors in this area, how much of a difference this sort of mayor-governor partnership has meant to your business. How has it changed the way you do business? How does it make you sort of optimistic about the region? Gil, we'll start with you.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you all for coming. To answer that question specifically, I mean, it's the same answer that you've all heard and we all know. We have to thank God that we're here in Florida. We're really lucky for DeSantis. I mean, if it wasn't for him, really, if it wasn't for DeSantis, I mean, the rest of the country is falling to pieces. I'm supposed to go to a bar mitzvah this weekend in New York, and they're harassing me about a second stamp on my vaccine card. I mean, if you can imagine that people can't move because of this whole situation, and what allowed us to just move freely here in South Florida is probably the reason why everybody realized that this is where it should be their next home.
Keith, your business, hospitality, depends on crowds and a vibrancy. Every other part of the country was switched off. I'm sure you benefited from that sort of open policy.
Yeah. As Gil mentioned, I think the heartbeat of this town is energy and people and things that are happening. And it has been great because we are open for business and people enjoy themselves. And we have to be careful, of course, but I think South Florida and Florida is a great place to do business.
And what about in terms of developing projects? What's the boost been from this environment that we're in?
So I think in the last 6 months, which is good for a lot of us, I think South Florida became home to many people from New York and other places. And we have this influx of great people who want great homes and great products. And I've been lucky enough to have a lot of friends coming here and helping them with their houses, and it's been an exciting time.
Todd, I want to go to you. One of the things I've been thinking about is how you're pushing pricing in this region. Feels like you're not using Florida as a comp. What are your comps when you're thinking about some of these projects? We have Tarpon Island, which you bought for 85 odd million, and you're asking, what, 210 million finished? Where are these numbers coming from?
Well, what's happening is, and I don't think anybody's really ever studied this, but in 2002, I sold my first $3 million waterfront house. So if you fast forward, a $30 million house is a nice house, but it's not a crazy house. But the income and the wealth of people don't go parallel with what real estate. So real estate's gone up tenfold, but somebody that was worth $8 million in 2003 could be worth $400 to $500 million. So why hasn't real estate gone up as much as a person's net value, especially the high end? There's 2,700 or 2,800 billionaires in the world. I don't know how many 100 millionaires there are, but I have a property that's one of a kind, and if a guy's worth $4 billion, why wouldn't he spend $200,000 on a house? People that are worth $300,000 buy $1 million house. So why wouldn't a guy that's worth $3 billion buy a $200 million house? In Palm Beach, a lot of the realtors are telling these very wealthy people, I'm talking 3, 4, 500 million, that you're 68 years old, you got about 12, 15 years of your life, literally spend your money on real estate and enjoy the home, and they're actually listening to it, and that's what's happening.
Jon Paul, one of the things that typically has defined the condo market in this region is extreme highs and extreme lows. As a developer sort of building for the next generation, do you think that that cycle has changed a little bit? Is there more of a sustainable condo market in the region now? And Gil, I'll go to you for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we think so. Historically, Miami's always been known as the boom and bust city, right? You have extreme highs, and then it goes extreme lows real quick at the blink of an eye. The major difference we're seeing, and we think it's going to continue for the future, is we have a much stronger domestic buyer. And that buyer's from companies, employees that are moving down to South Florida and making South Florida home. And it's not just a home where they're testing the market, they're going to come down here for a little bit, see how it feels. I mean, they're signing 10, 15-year leases, right? And it originally started, they were all buying Todd's houses, and then we were like, hey, can we get a little bit of that? We can have some condos to sell. But then after the heads of the companies came, the employees started coming. So it trickled down from the top to call it the executive senior vice presidents. So we think that's diversifying our local economy, which before was mainly tourism based. Now we have financial sector, big VC out of the West Coast, which hopefully they'll invest in businesses here and then grow those into the unicorns that'll be based out of Miami, South Florida. So we're very bullish on the foreseeable future.
Gil, I want to get your sense on pricing, how far it can go. I know you're trying a lot. I mean, Residences by Armani Casa, which you're doing with Related, you recently announced, I think, close to $1 billion. You'd hit a $1 billion sellout. How far can pricing go? And what are your comps now? Who are you thinking of when you're thinking of your ideal buyer? And Gil is obviously behind some of the most sort of envelope-pushing projects, right? Bentley is the latest one. So how far can you go with pricing? How crazy are you willing to get?
I think that we're actually keeping pricing in line with what we've been selling. We're pushing it at, the sellout, the average at Armani was $1,250 a foot. We're now looking at Bentley to be on the gross, because I don't know if you know the Bentley, we include the garage and the balconies. We're at $1,100 a square foot on the gross. So it's an attractive looking price per square foot and for what you get for the unit, but we're actually, the price points are approaching between $4 to $7 million. So it's a price point market, I think, more than what it is. And, when the customer asks us about comparisons and comps, we said there's nothing to compare it to. I mean, the only other thing you can compare the Bentley to is the Porsche Design Tower, which was a runaway success. So, I mean, and price per square foot, units there are trading. We actually sold a resale there for $1,800 a square foot last week. So that's where the market is going in Sunny Isles right now, and we're tracking with it, and we feel that when demand, everybody here is telling me how crazy the market is, and unfortunately I don't get to feel it because I'm sold out of everything. And so I hear you guys making all this money. I'm a bit jealous of everybody, but congratulations to you. But at the same time, we're seeing that this demand is happening on existing inventory. So where the real test case is going to be when we open up pre-construction to see how fast these buildings will sell out. And I think it'll be good because demand is so high that we're actually offering an alternative to these high prices, and if they're willing to just wait a few years. And so it should work very well. Prices will continue to go up.
We got a lot of brokers in the audience, obviously. So, there was this period in Miami, in this region, where you were offering brokers ridiculous incentives to close.
Not
right?
us.
there was a lot of developers who were doing these kind of things. What part of the market or what sort of category of product should they be thinking about now? What is the sort of the fastest growing category in terms of condo product out there? Maybe Jon Paul, that's for you.
It all depends on the buyer, right? And we live or die based off the broker. So obviously we thank you guys for everything you do for our business. But there's options out there, right? If you want the highest of the end, you can go to Miami Beach, or we have a project in Bell Harbor that we're thinking of selling at, probably $3,500 a foot. We also have product that's micro condos, which has been very successful, 300,000 to 800,000, no rental restrictions, and that's being snapped up like Tic Tacs. We almost, we can't even keep up with the demand. Then we also have sort of the luxury project, but it's not too expensive at $1,000 a foot, which is in Baccarat, where the demand was, we were extremely impressed with the amount of demand, where in a matter of 3 months, we sold 50% at over 1,000. And I still, in our opinion, that's relatively cheap, right? I mean, if you go to New York, where can you buy brand new product with the views, main and main location at 1,000? You can't. So I think there's still room, there's a lot of room for Miami to continue to grow.
I heard someone, we had a dinner last night, and someone mentioned prices in some product hitting $3,000 a foot for condos. Is that happening at all in any of the market across the region?
In Palm Beach, it is.
Yeah. No, you're at a
But
different.
that condo, the Bristol is getting, about $3,000 a foot, and they sold out.
Anywhere on the beach right now is $3,000 a foot.
That's incredible
You have
because that's
resales
prime.
selling at 4.
That's prime Lower Manhattan new build is what that was going for. Keith, go ahead.
It's interesting. The brokers are, in this town, I think, some of the best, amazing people. And it's funny, my family and I launched a building called Nativo, which we've just sold out and broke ground about a month ago. And we had 425 units, and we were saying to ourselves, that's a lot of apartments to sell. And we actually sold it out, and we still have requests every day to sell more, and we thank the brokers from around the world that sold with us. And on the home side, I think the residential brokers are incredible. I would say in the last 3 years, I probably sold, of my own homes, $70 million worth of homes, and none of them ever went in the market. There were amazing brokers who, when I made 5 phone calls and said, guys, I want to sell a house, here's a few pictures. They had buyers, they were clear, they were so perfect. So I think the brokers in Miami, both on the condo side and the single home family side, are just great professionals. And I think that's how we're seeing so much transaction and flow and just great new buyers, is that they're kind of the gatekeeper from a product to a buyer to a sale. And I think they do fantastic.
You talked about homes, so I'm assuming that's Menin Homes, the sort of the solo projects that you dive in, no one gets in your way, and then eventually you sell them for a lot more money. Todd, I want to ask you about this. I'll come back to you, Keith, on this as well. But my question is really, it's about how are people using Miami real estate? I use that word using very deliberately. There used to be a come in, party it up, or have a little retreat, and then go back to wherever they live. Now, that's changing. There's much more of a year-round destination. What does that mean in terms of how you're thinking about developing, how you're thinking about in terms of product, amenities, in your category, what you do? And Keith, I'll come back to you for that as well.
I mean, what's interesting is when we were selling years ago, people were coming 3-4 months, buying a modern house, and it was vacation. Now they're coming to live here full-time, and they want a modern house because they want to feel like they're on vacation. So the houses really haven't changed. What I have seen is people from the Northeast in New York and California, they like the Mediterranean, and that's why, Keith has done so well, and I've done some renovations, and we're finding a market where nobody's building Mediterranean anymore, they're doing modern. So we're able to come in and build something that somebody wants, that there's, many years ago, somebody said to me, why am I building modern? This was 20 years ago. The answer was there's 2 modern houses and 6 modern buyers, and there's 40 Mediterranean houses and 5 buyers. So now there's 10 Mediterranean buyers out of 50, but there's no product. So Keith and I are both producing stuff, and they're walking in because they don't want the white box. They don't want the modern house. And that's what I'm seeing now. The market's starting to come back to that.
But our buyer demand's changing in terms of now, I have to think about where my kids go to school. I have to think about hospitals and public spaces. I know a lot of your buyers don't worry about public spaces too much, but you know what I mean. It's like
But what's really interesting is my market used to consist from, say, Palm Island, Hibiscus, Sunset 3, Sunset 4, up to 63rd. We did a lot of stuff early in Lagos, and everybody would say it was too far north. That market's changed. It's gone from now Coral Gables all the way up to Golden Beach. Everything seems to be within a distance where the new people who were used to driving 45 minutes to an hour, commuting to wherever they were going, they don't mind the drive. They don't mind driving from Golden Beach. They don't mind driving from 63rd Street. I mean, I've lost deals because a guy was brought in and they took him on he stayed at Hibiscus Island for New Year's. The guy took him on I-95, brought him to 195. By the time he got to the house at 94 Lagos, Little Wayne's house, the guy didn't get out of the car. He said, it's too far from South Beach. And all the guy had to do is take him down Alton Road. But literally, this was 8-10 years ago, walked away. So that mentality's changed. So it's more South Florida. So it's, really Coral Gables all the way up to, Stewart.
We talked a little bit about design. I also want to talk about, obviously, money, construction lending. The landscape has changed quite a bit in South Florida. You're seeing every pretty major lender come in, invest a lot of money. There's a project, I believe, Russell, who's in the audience, got a $350 million odd loan from Blackstone. So there's a lot of blue chip money coming in. Do you want to just give me a brief overview of the construction financing market right now? I don't know if you've got your money for Bentley yet.
We're starting to talk to lenders,
Okay.
and what we're hearing is alternative financing is actually cheaper than the bank financing that we're used to using. I've been working with Wells Fargo for the last 10 plus years, and they're telling me themselves that you can probably get better deals without us. So it's very interesting how the world is changing. The private money's out there, all kinds of alternative investing, and JP introduced me to a great guy a few weeks ago who was making us some offers, and that sound very attractive. So.
Yeah, there's more liquidity in the equity market, from the banks, from the private equity players than there's ever been before. So you can get 70% financing on a condo at 5%, 5.25. Rentals, you can get up to 80% now. So financing is not an issue, especially in this market, which is seen as a market that's a very strong market and has a big runway ahead of it. It all depends on the sales, right? If you have a project where you're showing strong sales, you're basically fighting the lenders off, and it's a competition every time, which actually helps you get the rate lower and the proceeds higher. So it's a good time to be looking for financing.
It also helps offset the increase in pricing, because when JP and I built the Armani Casa Tower, I don't even remember the rate we were paying was something ridiculous for non-recourse, and because of the mix of banks, and now that we're budgeting 3-4% less for these towers, it's a savings of millions and millions of dollars that we will wind up spending someplace else because everything else is going up in cost. So fortunately, it will help keep the budgets in line.
Keith, in your world, how does it work? How does it work on hospitality, redevelopment of some of these homes?
Sure. So I think in my world, it's a little bit smaller buildings than these guys.
Yeah. You're an aesthete, right? Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
and so the truth is, for our homes, we really finance them ourselves.
Okay.
And we buy them, we fix them up, and we either keep them or we sell them. So it's not really in the environment of what the lenders want to do, because it's just really us. And the reason why I think we're successful and we go fast is that we see great Mediterranean homes, like Todd mentioned, and if they have great bones, we dive into it and renovate them and really build them for ourselves. So when I design a home, I just think, what would I want? And I design it just like that. And that's typically where people go, I like that. So it's funny, we just actually started our first project, well, our second one actually in Aspen now. And we're doing our first Menin home spec house. And we looked at the house and we're like, the bones are great. What do people want in Aspen? And they want to have a big mudroom, a great spa, a great gym, a great massage room, a great office. And we just figured out how to create all that enveloped in one environment. And it creates a great home, and people always love them. Like I said, we've never actually put our homes ever on the market. Friends just want them. Buyers know kind of our product.
What kind of friends are we talking about? You said you were going to reveal some of his friends and some of these buyers things.
Yeah, but not here.
No, it's funny, as you're noting too, since this whole new New York people and global environment come to Miami, I typically only build homes for ourselves. We never build for anybody else. That's what Todd does great, and it's never been our thing. And what happened was we had a lot of phone calls from some great friends that said, Keith, we're in Miami, bought a great house. We only trust you. You must help us. So I'm now building 5 homes for friends just to make sure that their homes are done right and they're set up and their environment's good. But typically, we just build our own homes for us, and people tend to like them.
I want to zoom out, talk a little bit about the sort of the broader Miami energy, if you will, and sort of the big things that are happening here and how it's impacting your business. So, you know, Art Basel was one of the magnets of this market. It's always been, there's a new one now, Formula One, right? Miami's going to have an F1 race, which is massive, right? What do you feel about, I know you're a car nut anyway, but what do you feel about those kind of sort of big shifts that are happening? So we can talk about F1, but we can also talk about VCs actually setting up here. A lot of people saying FU to New York and SF and moving here. What is that doing for your business?
I mean, Miami has been evolving since I've been here 20 years. It's been evolving to a world-class city, and we're finally there. Formula One was just another notch on our belt. I remember when I first came to University of Miami here, Formula One was downtown through the streets, and it was the coolest thing ever. And I'm still a car fan, but I can tell you, I've been to many F1 races around the world. It's the best time of the year. It's a party. It brings a great crowd. And just like Art Basel, the city will swell. And when the city swells, everything happens, from spends at restaurants to, of course, the real estate purchases and everything else. I mean, and so it's great for us, and it should be, you know, next should come the ocean boat races and all the other fun stuff that comes along with that stuff.
Gil is a former champion, I believe, 2009 of the Gumball Rally, which is the thing he puts on his, you know, his.
Wow, you remember?
Yes, I do. Want to get your take as well, guys, on sort of the broader Miami momentum. We talked about, I mean, Mayor Suarez is a big part of that, but so many other things that have just sort of hit. COVID, being open, venture capital flowing in, actual startups being minted out of here as opposed to just moving here. What is that doing for your product, your development, your investments? Anyone who wants to take that, go.
So what's really interesting is if you really look, Miami Beach was incorporated, I think, in 1905. So that's 105 years old. There's people older than our city. So he was talking about cycles going up and down. So in 100 years, there's probably been 8 or 9 cycles of down and up. So in the last 60 years of development, this city is built. We're just starting. New York is 400 or 500 years old. London is, you know, a lot older than that. So we're a brand new entity that people are starting to understand that this is the synergy of the world. We have everything going for us, but nobody really knows about it. And every time somebody comes here, they say, why didn't I come here earlier? What was I doing? You know, a friend of mine, Jared Posner, just moved here, and he didn't want to come. He lived here his whole life, and they'll never go back to New York.
But there's a flip side to that, Todd. There's a flip side to that. There's the infrastructure isn't quite ready to handle what you guys would hope would happen to Miami. The crime has risen in the last year quite a bit. There's insane traffic jams, right? There's a quality of life aspect that is going to get worse over time. What do people in your position do about that? How do you think about that?
But what's interesting is I lived in the design district in 1987, and I never got a parking ticket. Okay? We could park anywhere. There were spaces. So you have Wynwood, which I started in 1999 with David Lombardi. Scott Robbins and I bought the design district before Craig Robbins knew what the design district was. So what's happening is the infrastructure's not there yet, and it's growing. You could see the new bridge that they're building on 395 near 1000 Museum. And you have Edgewater, you have Wynwood, you have Midtown, you have design districts. So you don't have to drive. You walk out, you don't need the infrastructure of a city because your nucleus is there. Miami Beach is another thing. So you're getting these small areas. Even Coral Gables is developing where you never want to really leave Coral Gables. Sunny Isles, listen, I was a pool boy at the Monaco in the Hawaiian Isle, and they used to have putt-putt golf. So I've been around and I've seen what, you know.
I still have a job waiting for you over there.
I'm telling you, this is, but I watched this whole development start. So, you know, Sunny Isles is a pocket. So now that there's more pockets, there's a lot more going on. Like Wynwood, you don't have to leave. You know, when I lived in Wynwood in '92, you walk downstairs, there was nothing.
But what you're saying is kind of almost scary, which is we don't need to rely on the infrastructure. We've got our own. That can't be a sustainable way to go. Jon Paul, what do you think?
No, and an important point to what Todd was just to follow on is like we have real neighborhoods, right? Like New York, where you have people that want to live in Chelsea, they want to live in the Upper West Side, Lower East Side. Now you have, like you said, all these different neighborhoods that have sort of matured over the last few years and are continuing to mature, right? Or even at the infancies of sort of where they're going to be. Like Wynwood's a perfect example, where if you look back 5 years ago, there was no apartments. Now you have a pipeline of probably 4,000 apartments and 3 million square feet of office. So imagine what that's going to look like in 5 years, right? Especially with all the companies coming in now. So, you know, I think Miami in general is still in the infancy stage. We're like a teenager, you know, about to go off to college. But what's really telling is an organization like the Aspen Institute has chosen Miami to have one of their festivals, right? I mean, you would never have thought of that 5 years ago. So that's just another further statement that Miami's a place that has truly become a world-class city, and it has everything: arts, education, culture. So, you know, it's exciting to see, and, you know, we all as developers try to do our part to contribute to it.
Yeah, I mean, as JP said, I think the fun thing about South Florida, unlike called Manhattan, because we're discussing New York a lot, is that people who are moving here now have different personalities they can choose. So I have some friends that are only buying homes in Coral Gables, and they love Coral Gables. I have some friends that only want North Bay Road. I have some friends that will only go to Palm Beach. I have some friends like the Grove. So what's fun about it is that everyone can kind of find where they want to adapt and kind of create their home nest. And I think that that's kind of exciting about it.
But is Keith's friends enough of a deep buyer pool? Do you know what I mean by that? Like, is sort of your friends and your tastes and sort of that income level, is that enough of a deep pool to keep a city and its market going?
I'm going to defer to Gil.
Everybody knows Keith.
So I'll answer that. So
But
Keith-
to answer your question regarding infrastructure, I think it's something at this point where we are today, it's something kind of tough to get in front of. I mean, to the extent that water and sewer is there, parking and traffic and all that kind of stuff. You know, we know a little bit about parking. If you talk to the car companies and where they're seeing the vision going forward, in the next 5 to 10 years, all these cars are going to be driving automatically, which means people will stop having 2 or 3 cars. They'll have maybe one shared between the husband and wife, etc. And so when cars start, you know, automatic driving coming in, you're going to see a lot less on traffic side, and then the infrastructure is what it is. You know, sustainable.
Are you going to give up some of your cars as
No, I can't.
Okay.
So with Keith, he probably knows about 10% of the 90% of the people we're talking about. A lot of the people that I sell houses to, Keith doesn't know. A lot of people that Keith knows, I don't know. And there's a lot of guys like me. So it's a really interesting thing what's happening. You're getting people that have never really worked together. People are in California, people are in Chicago, people are in New York, people are in Miami. They're all coming to one place, and they're all meeting each other. Before, California was 3 hours ahead. You didn't do business with people. New York was a little different because it was New York. It's the first time since I'm a kid I've seen a new, super educated, very well-minded group of people coming here that are in their 40s and 50s, bringing their kids, and they're all looking for, money where to donate, who to gravitate to, what cliques are. So what I think in the next 10 years, what we're going to see Miami develop into with all of these people that have given to their places throughout their lives wherever they live, are all going to concentrate, and the synergy of that is going to be unbelievable. You know, like New York has the Met, the museum, that huge. We don't have any of that, but we're starting to. Your father helped with the art museum, but that was a first of its kind. To go build something architecturally like that building, the cost would never have been appreciated until probably 7, 8 years ago when it was built.
It sort of looks crazy until it doesn't, right? That's the
Right.
idea. It takes a while to kick in. I do want to talk about your North Miami Beach project, the Intracoastal Highway redevelopment, $1.5 billion project. I'm interested in that project because you're taking a bet on I don't know if emerging is the right word, but you're taking a bet on a sort of a newish area for that kind of product. There's some developers in the room, and many would-be developers. We'd love to get your take on, when you take on a project like that in an untested area, what sort of challenges did you deal with? I know the community board stuff was quite intense.
The community board was very difficult. Took us 3 years, but we got approved 2,000 units, 525,000 square feet of retail. We're going to be digging out a canal to create waterfront. And you know, the area is North Miami Beach. It was kind of skipped over in every one of these development cycles, and I think that the city realized that, and that's where the city leaders got together and said, hey, we need to really bring some of this development here to North Miami Beach. And I don't see it as such a large, you know, leap from what we've been doing. It's waterfront, and that's what I specialize in specifically. We don't like to touch anything that's not. And so we're creating, of course, more waterfront linear footage, and putting in basically more urban infill. Something that is required for the area. Demand is obviously shown it's there. And so for us, the hardest thing right now is the logistics of what starts first and what goes last, and where we're figuring that stuff out. And we are figuring it out.
But all the political lobbying, all the back, that's all done now?
That's done. That was a headache. I don't know if anybody remembers, but we were getting the project approved, and the meeting went on to 2 o'clock in the morning, and we needed 5 votes, and it was on Zoom, and one of the commissioners passed out, and the other one lost connection. So that's what happened when we were trying to get the project approved. We had to go back another month later and but of course we got it done. But it was just, I mean, it was not easy. It was working with the neighbors and really creating something great for the neighborhood. And I think that's what we did. We added more access points to enter because we're planning on adding about 20,000 cars daily coming to that one site where we don't have it today. So it's we got it all worked out with DOT. And it's going to be one of the most fantastic projects in Miami, but we're not starting for another couple of years, but I'm sure you'll all hear about it when it's ready.
And since we're a newsroom, there's something that just broke Jon Paul yesterday in downtown, a project that you guys are working on. Talk a little bit about that. That just happened, so maybe some people might not be familiar.
Yeah, we launched Casa Bella by B&B Italia. So, you know, Architectonica design building, 60 stories, right in the Arts and Entertainment District, walking distance from the museum, from the Performing Arts Center, from the new Miami World Center area. And, you know, we're very excited about that project because you're sort of in the action, but not in all the craziness of downtown, right? So you're just steps away, and you're basically on the water without being on the water, right? So it's the same exact views as 1000 Museum that sells for probably $2,000 a foot now, where you
Not
can
that
buy.
much.
I gotta exaggerate.
I know, but not that much. I wish.
No, so you could get it for almost half the price, and it's same quality and steps away from an area that's, you know, hustling and bustling with all of the new stores that are opening and restaurants. So we're super excited about it. We think there was a positive response. And B&B Italia is known as one of the best Italian furniture brands out there, and they're designing the entire common areas with Piero Lissoni. So we look forward to, you know, the next few weeks announcing some positive sales momentum there.
I'm going to ask maybe a less optimistic question now. So I don't want to get into the philosophical question of climate change, because forget that. It's going to be another day. But I do want to get into what you're actually doing in terms of designing and developing for a more sustainable city or to mitigate some of the climate change effects. Todd, I'm interested in because you're doing a different kind of product. Love to get your take on how you're thinking about that.
What's interesting is Miami Beach took a very aggressive stance on climate change. So you can raise your house 5 feet higher than your original ground floor used to be. So you're literally 9 feet, 8 feet off of the floor, of the ground floor. So they count the height of the house from the first floor. Miami is just +1, and most of the state is +1 above what you should be. Palm Beach right now is talking about going to +2, not going as aggressive as 5. But Miami Beach is probably the most aggressive in the climate change to be able to have a house start at 8 feet and then go up 24 or 28 feet. So it's dwarfing a lot of the houses and changing the neighborhood. Most of the houses that we're building with these understories, and they all seem to love them.
Anyone else want to take that and get your take?
I mean, FEMA's done a pretty good job of regulating what we're allowed to do, what we can and cannot do. And so, you know, we're following those rules. I know on the ocean front, the wave crest is at 16 feet, and so you're not allowed any residential living there. So, I mean, you know, water rising 16 feet, we got a couple of 100 years until it happens. I think we'll be okay with it.
You're always optimistic about this, but something has changed. Every time I ask you this every year, you're taking more practical steps now, it sounds like.
I mean, but the good thing is, we're not building on our own. You know, there's lots of government agencies that are telling us what we can and cannot do, and so we're relying on them. And believe it or not, I mean, I've met with some of these agencies, and they're pretty impressive on how much they really understand of what's going on. They can tell you the sandbars and how they're going to shift, and they really can read the future. And so, therefore, you know, if we just follow those guidelines, everything will be fine.
Anyone else want to take that? Okay, I'll jump into another question I had about cryptocurrency. It's come up. Mayor Suarez said, you know, we want this city to be sort of one of the crypto capitals. Eric Adams, his counterpart in New York, sort of threw the gauntlet out, said we actually want New York. Has crypto or the potential of cryptocurrency changed anything in terms of how you guys are operating or might operate? That could be buyer pool.
I think after today we're starting Keith Coin.
Keith, I want to hear because I know you dabble.
For my business, it hasn't changed much. You know, most of my buyers and my friends are normal. You know, buy and close. But I think in their worlds, people are buying condos with crypto. They're buying cars with crypto. They go to Gil's dad's car museum with crypto. So it's definitely around. There's definitely a lot of transactions going on.
Jon Paul, would you take buyer deposits in Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or any of those?
I mean, we haven't yet, but if we were going to do it, what we would do is convert it to cash right away, right? Because we don't want to take any crypto risk as the real estate developer. But what it has done is there's been a lot of wealth generated from this cryptocurrency craze, sort of new asset class, and then that trickles down to them buying cars, condos, houses. So I think it's great, and I think it's great that the mayor is very open, trying to make, you know, us the hub of the crypto world, which means a lot of wealth coming to Miami.
It's more about the buyer pool as opposed to changing anything about how you operate. Yeah. Gotcha. But Todd, did you have any crypto multi-billionaires buying $210 million?
We've had people offer us in cryptocurrency, but it's nothing that we're even thinking about right now.
We've not stayed away from it. We've spoken to everybody. You know, a lot of these crypto guys, our prices are in the millions. So if you have millions of dollars of crypto, the question is why? You know, that would be my question. But at the same time, like I can understand why they might want to pay for it in crypto because of avoiding capital gains or whatever the case may be. If they bought it for 2 cents and it's worth $200, I can understand that part. If people tried to pay with us, I'm sure we should make out some sort of deal, you know, where we peg it to the dollar, and as long as we convert to the same dollar amount, it's fine, you know. But that's still yet to be seen.
Miami's at the center of so many shifts, right? There's the F1, the crypto. There's so many trends happening, which is why this panel and the people on it, it's such a fascinating time to talk to you. So again, I appreciate your time. Thank you for being with The Real Deal, and let's have a round of applause.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.